right, thank you so much. The time is 6 p.m. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll begin with a roll call. Ms. Lisa Garcia.
Mayor Walter.
Here.
Vice Mayor Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Hawkins.
Here.
Councilmember Wall.
Here.
Councilmember Larson.
Here.
Councilmember Cortez.
Here.
Councilmember Hughes.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Let's begin with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you. Call to the public is for public comment on issues within the jurisdiction of the Town Council. Council rules limit public comment to 3 minutes. Individual council members may respond to criticism made by those commenting, may ask staff to review a matter raised, or may ask that a matter is put on a future agenda. However, members of the council shall not discuss or take action on any matter during an open call to the public unless those matters are properly noticed for legal discussion and action. Is there anybody who would like to speak at this time? I do not have any in front of me. All right, we are closing call to the public. Item 6 is presentations. 6A is recognition of the 2018 Junior Parada Parade and the Christmas on Main Parade Float winners. Miss Allison, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We would like to recognize all of the parade winners from the 2018 Junior Parada and Christmas on Main. We know that it takes a lot of time, dedication, very frustrating, I'm sure, to put together and work on floats for these parades. So we wanted to take the time and recognize all of our parade winners. I'm going to list them, and then at the end, we will go ahead and give them a round of applause. And also, just so you guys are aware, we presented them with their awards before the council meeting, so we were able to take photos with them as well. All right, for Junior Parada, Best Marching Group, we have Coolidge High School MCJROTC. If you guys would please stand whenever I call your name. Best Motorized Vehicle, Valley Farms 4-H. Best Equestrian Entry, Arizona Wild Horse and Burro Inmate Program. Best Authentic Western Vehicle, Wells Fargo. Best Civic Entry, Florence Teen Council. Best Commercial Entry, Florence Copper. And then for Christmas on Main Street, we have our Best Community Entry is Florence Aero Modelers. Best Community Entry is Florence K-8 Student Council and NJHS. Best Performance, Florence High School Marching Band. Best Government Entry, Pinal County Attorney's Office. Best Public Safety Entry is Eloy Fire. Best Business Entry is E&JC Heating and Cooling. Best Family Entry is the Ramirez Martinez family. An honorary mention is the Arizona Rangers. So if we can give all of those guys a round of applause. And if you guys are at the Christmas on Main event, you guys probably noticed a huge, it was just the parade entries were great. We had so many compliments on how well the parade entries were and how much everybody really enjoyed the parade. So it wouldn't be possible without all of these folks and the organizations that put all of the time and effort into the float entries, and we appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. And everybody who participated in the parade, thank you. It does take a lot of hard work and a lot of effort, and the community, surrounding communities really pulled together and put together an amazing show. So thank you.
I'd like to correct one thing that Ally said, though. I don't think we were frustrated. I think it was a lot of fun doing that, so.
Putting them together.
Yes, yeah. Well, I was with the teen group, so we had fun.
Thank you guys again. Our next presentation is by the Florence Teen Council with some highlights of their activities. David Lewis.
Train today. There we go. All right, well, while they're shuffling in, good evening, Mayor and Town Council. Hope you guys had great holidays. Luckily, our kids just got back from holiday break back into school today, so I'm sure we discussed earlier and they all had great days. Per normal, I don't do much talking. I let them do the talking for me. So without further ado, I'm going to let them get started.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. I see some new faces up here. Congratulations and welcome. So like David said, we're going to talk about some of the events that we have done. So the Florence Teen Council started about 3 years ago, and last year, my man Brian gave us the thumbs up to do a lock-in. Now, if you don't know what a lock-in is when we lock the students in from 7 p.m. on Friday to 7 a.m. Saturday morning. 12 hours of teenagers, a lot of them. And so once he gave us the thumbs up, I went to the Florence Teen Council. I said, hey, we're good to go, and they got right to planning it. They planned 4 rooms, music all night long, food in one room, video room, room where people can go and just play videos and watch movies. And they decided to do it for the junior high schools. They said the junior high school students are easier to control. And so we did that. We went to the Florence K-8, and we had an assembly, let them know about it. And the day of the lock-in, we had over 100 kids wrapped around that building trying to get in. So the event started at 7 o'clock. At, David, what time? 4 o'clock? 3 hours prior, maybe even earlier than that, there were people in line. They didn't want to miss out on this event. And we started at 7 o'clock, and I'm thinking, okay, about 9:30, maybe 10 o'clock, they'll start to wind down a little bit, and yeah, that didn't happen. And they decided to have a rave at 12 o'clock, so here comes the DJ, so they're ramped up again. So I'm like, okay, 2:30, 3 o'clock, they should be nice and, you know, the energy gone. No. These kids ran around for 12 hours straight. And 7 o'clock, the parents came, and we went out there and we walked the kids to their parents. I shook the parents saying, hey, thank you very much for bringing them. The parents were like, oh, no, thank you. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, hey, I get it. And, you know, we had the volunteers, the chaperones, and I want to thank the mayor and the council members for volunteering to chaperone the next one that we're going to be doing. Listen, the feedback that we got from that was, I guess it was the first one that they've ever had here in Florence, and the feedback was remarkable. Every parent received a letter, a thank you letter, a personalized thank you letter. Every parent received one from the kids, and it was ready that morning. They printed them up, they typed them up, and right when we dropped off the kids, boom, here you go, parents, with their name on it. Thank you very much, over the top. It was a great, great, great event, and I want to thank you guys for allowing us to have that. Now, there's a lot of other things that happen between then and now, and so we're going to have our beautiful students come up here and talk to you. First up is Madison.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm talking about the success from Halloween night. So on Halloween night, we had a haunted house at the American Legion Center. We had 6 sections. We had 4 rooms and 2 hallways. In our rooms, we had a scaring clown, a child killing clown, a clown hidden behind balloons, and a puppet master and their puppet. In the 2 hallways, we had a black-white hallway with a girl hiding in the hallway with black lights and black light activated masks and hanging up. And in our other one, we had plastic strips hanging in strobe lights. At the end of the night, we ended up raising a little over $550, and we had 500 people come through. We ended up with tons of positive comments and constructive suggestions. We look forward to making it even better next year. And next up, talking is Katie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Katie, and I'll be talking about the Junior Parada. On November 21st, we started building a float for the Junior Parada. Us FTC members put our hard work and dedication into building it. On the day of the parade, some of us were walking next to the truck handing out candy, while others of us were in the back of the truck with our smiling faces greeting everyone as we passed by. At the end of it, everyone had fun and loved it, and we can't wait to do it again next year. We also took a few fun trips, including going to the mall and Skateland. Next speaking will be Lolita.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dolores Vasquez, and today I'll be talking about the shadowing we did on December 5th. We shadowed 5 people in 5 different departments of the town of Florence. We were able to see what helps make Florence run so smoothly. We got further insight not just on how great these departments are, but how great the people who work in them are. We took them out for lunch and conversed with them. We had a great time, and it was a great experience. We continue to do this next year as well.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kara, and I will be talking about Christmas on Main Street. On Christmas on Main Street, our Town Council and Teen Council participated in the light parade. And on December 5th, our Town Council and Teen Council came together to help build it. We had lots of fun and hope to have just as much as fun next year. On December 7th, we joined together on Main Street and waited for the parade to start. And as we were waiting, the Teen Council was brought together as a teen area, where we played music and had fun and danced. When the parade started, we lined up on Main Street, grabbed handfuls of candy, some of us dressed up, and we walked through the parade. And at the end of the night, we ended it with Christmas carols, and we can't wait for next year. Next up is Grace.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Grace. On December 13th, FTC hosted our 3rd annual Holiday Hoedown, having over 80 participants joining us for a night of dancing, eating, live music, and spending time with friends and family. And with many positive comments, we can't wait to host next year and many more to come. Thank you, and bringing back is Coco.
That sounds like a lot, especially with students being in school, and it is a lot, but I tell you, they absolutely love doing events and helping to make Florence a little bigger and a little bit better. What we have coming up is our Youth Leadership Symposium. It's going to be our 3rd one, and we've invited teen companies and organizations throughout Pinal County to come and participate. We have 4 of the best speakers and presenters in the nation. And the Florence Teen Council, not only do they want to make Florence better, but they want to help to improve the lives of the students and teenagers in Pinal County, and I applaud them for that. Good job. So if you have any questions for any of the teens, that'd be great.
What I do want to start off with is, teens, I notice how much you've improved over the past 3 years in regards to your public speaking, your self-confidence, and how active you are in the community in such a positive way. So I want to share with you how much it's noticed, appreciated, and we look forward to everything you're going to continue doing. And in regards to Coco's invitation about helping with the lock-in or any of those events, please know that I will definitely participate, especially if you have, those activities and you need a chaperone.
Okay, we need a DJ for the rave, so I don't know who, maybe John. John, that's going to be you,
Hey,
man.
Dave.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Vice
there
Mayor, and
any
council members.
others?
Oh, anyone else?
Do you have the date for the youth symposium?
Yes, it is February the 23rd. February 23rd.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Coco. Thank you, Florence Teen Council. We appreciate everything you're doing in the community. Keep up the good work and keep growing as leaders. Our next presentation is Pinal County Tourism, video number 3, Mr. Ben Bitter.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We just have the 3rd video in the series produced by the Pinal County Economic Development Department. In terms of promotion for the county, happy to play that for you if you'd like.
Yes, please do so.
All right.
You don't have to go far to experience a place of wonder. To get lost in wide open spaces. and surround yourself in natural beauty. You don't have to spend a lot of money to take the road less traveled, to create a moment that belongs just to you. And you don't need a reservation to do something that takes you further, that puts you front and center, where the wild things are. Where escaping the everyday and experiencing something new isn't that hard to do. In fact, your next great adventure is a lot closer than you might think. Next great adventure is right here, waiting in Pinal County, Arizona.
So that's it. Should have another one in the next few months would be my guess, and just excited to continue to share that message with anyone that wants to hear it.
Thank you very much. The next item is a work session presentation by Carson Bise, TischlerBise, and regarding the Town of Florence Development Impact Fee Update. Ms. Lisa Garcia.
Mayor and members of council, I'm very happy to welcome Carson Bise up to the front, who is going to be doing a presentation on the Town of Florence impact fees. Town of Florence has been working with Carson for approximately a year to develop both an IIP study and impact fees. Tonight we'll be adopting, if council so desires, the resolution number 165-19 under new business item B. That is the study that goes into place, and based on that study are the impact fees, and Carson's going to go over those in details with council. We're going to try to answer any questions that you have tonight. I do want to note, and Carson's also going to note, that Carson did provide me a new study on the draft land use assumptions, infrastructure improvement plan, and development fees. It was updated today, January 7th, 2019, based on comments that were received from the public, and Carson will note those prior to the adoption of the IIP plan.
Thanks, Lisa. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. It's my pleasure to stand in front of you again tonight. I know that we have two new faces among us. I'm trying to find the clicker. Oh, here it is, right here. Sorry about that. So I'm going to start with a little bit of background about impact fees or development fees in Arizona, and then go into the presentation. As Lisa mentioned, we did receive some last-minute comments from the public today. One of those were germane enough to slightly change a calculation for the Parks and Recreation impact fee. It makes the fee go down a few dollars, but that's about it. And so the one that you will be adopting will have the date of January 7th on it versus the January 4th, I believe, was the last version. So for those who are maybe new to the council, a little bit about our firm. We focus purely on cost of growth issues, primarily development fees and fiscal and economic analysis. We've done more of that than anybody in the country, and you can see here we've also got unsurpassed experience in Arizona, particularly under the new SB 1525. Speaking of SB 1525, that is the enabling statute in Arizona for development fees. It changed in 2012. The changes were significant, and they're sort of summarized on this slide here. It requires 3 integrated products, okay? First is the land use assumptions, which has to go out at least 10 years. They have to be approved by the elected officials. Utilities can go out to 15, but most of our clients have chosen to stick with a 10-year horizon. With the IIPs, also known as the Infrastructure Improvements Plan, that is limited to 10 years for non-utilities, 15 years for utilities, but again, most clients have decided to opt for a 10-year. And then the other requirement with SB 1525 is that it forces jurisdictions to recognize that development fees are part of a broader revenue strategy. And I think there was a reliance by a lot of jurisdictions in the first part of this century from 2020 or 2000 to 2010, where they were really viewed as primarily a revenue source rather than a land use regulation, and folks lost sight of that, and I think that's what precipitated a lot of the changes that we see in SB 1525. The Act does require that the development fees be based on the current levels of service provided to existing development. It placed significant limitations on what cities and towns can do in terms of categories. Just to highlight a few of those, recreational facilities now are limited to 3,000 square feet in size. Libraries are limited to 10. Can't do public safety training facilities anymore unless you had existing debt on general government facilities prior to 2012. Can't charge a fee for sort of town hall type services either. And it also has specific provisions in there related to refunds if facilities aren't built over the 10-year IIP horizon. In terms of sort of some background on legal, this is true no matter what state you're in, but impact fees are a one-time charge. These are not annual charges. They're not assessed against your existing development base. It's on new homes, new non-residential activity. We can't use the fees for operations, maintenance, or replacement of any kind. I think it's also important to note that contrary to what you may hear the home builders say sometimes, it is not a tax on new development. It is a fee, and a fee is very different than a tax. A tax is primarily revenue raising, and depending on the state, you may have to have specific enabling legislation to do such taxes. You may need to go to a vote of the people. A fee is designed to cover the cost of a service, much like the cost of reviewing a building permit. But with impact fees or development fees, that test is, or that requirement is even stronger. We have to meet basically a 3-pronged legal test, which includes nexus or need. So we have to show through the analysis that development is going to occur in Florence, that development is going to generate the need for new capital facilities over time. We have to show benefit, and we show benefit 2 ways. One is through the timing of the expenditure, meaning that we have to expend the funds within the 10 years as required by the Act. And the second way we show benefit is through geography. Now, most communities are small enough that you don't have to get into service areas. We do have some service areas for utilities, which I'll go over, but that's because of the fact that you have multiple providers in your community. But the idea about geographic benefit is that you're not collecting money in the south and then spending it on the north, and none of the folks in the south receive benefits. So that's what we mean by that. And then finally, we have to show proportionality, and that's why you see that the fees are different by type of residential unit. They're different by type of non-residential development, because the demand generated by those land uses can be quite different. This slide here summarizes the increases contained in the land use assumptions document. We are projecting an increase over the next 10 years, and this is largely based on MAG data checked against what's currently happening here within the town. Of year-round residents, an increase of about 3,330. Another increase of about 1,100 seasonal residents, and that equates to about 1,750 new single-family units and about 250 new multifamily units over 10 years. From a non-residential perspective, we're projecting about 1.3 million additional square feet of non-residential activity, and that equates to about 3,720 new jobs within the town. Now we're going to focus on each of the fee categories I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time unless you have specific questions, because I understand you all may have some specific questions about the fees themselves and the implementation thereof. But if you think that you want to go back and ask me a question, please stop me. But when we look at the fees for Parks and Recreation, we're using what's called a consumption-based approach, which looks at your current levels of service and basically projects that going forward. Parks and Recreation is provided on a town-wide basis, so we're recommending a town-wide service area, and the components include parkland, open space, as well as the amenities or park improvements that you would see on existing town parks. To help people out, I'm putting red circles on these relevant tables here to sort of draw your attention to really what we're focusing on. Rather than go into the details of all the assumptions going into the report, these tables here summarize the projected demand. So for each of these tables, I'm going to show you the level of service standards from the impact fee study are shown at the top, the levels of service for land and improvements in these cases. But what we're showing here at the bottom in red is based on the projections of development and the land use assumptions, this is how much demand it's creating. As you can see in this table, it's about $3.7 million in growth-related expenditures, and that equates to 39 new acres and about 285 new park improvements, and the cost associated with that would be about $3.7 million. Then this table here shows the draft fees, and again, these fees were revised today based on comments, so they've gone down slightly. So the single-family fee is $1,934. That is contrasted against your current fee of $1,417, so that's an increase of about $517. The multifamily fee also increases slightly by $289. It may surprise some of you that we're charging or assessing fees for parks against non-residential development, but that's one of the outgrowths of the changes to the Impact Fee Act in 2012. It's now required that we assess non-residential development for this, even though there may or may not be demand. So we see here the proposed fees are decreasing slightly for commercial, office, and industrial space, and that decreases anywhere from 3 cents per square foot to 1 cent per square foot. And see here they're fairly modest for non-residential development. And finally, for parks, there's two red circles here. First is the total growth-related expenditures, the $3.7 million, which matches the slide, 2 slides back. But here's the projection of revenue, and of course, this is a gross projection of revenue because we don't know exactly how many square feet of non-residential development is going to come in, so we're rounding, so to speak. So the revenue almost matches the expenditures. It's about $200,000 more than the actual expenditures themselves, but they should equal out through the course of the 10-year period. Turning our attention to fire, again, we've taken that same approach, a consumption-based approach based on current levels of service. We are recommending a town-wide service area for fire because fire is provided town-wide and there's redundancy among the stations, meaning that they cover for each other as certain vehicles and apparatus are on call. We do have a credit for existing debt for the fire stations, and the components are station square footage and apparatus. Again, you'll see the red circle here. Based on the land use assumptions, new growth generates the demand for about 8,600 square feet of additional fire station space and demand for about 4 new pieces of apparatus. The total cost of that is about $4.3 million. The fees themselves are shown here. The single-family house fee is $955 proposed. That's about a $38 increase over your current fee. So when adjusted for inflation, it's probably an even swap there. When we look at the multifamily fees, they are going down slightly by $33. And that has to do with the change in the persons per household factors over the last study. From a non-residential perspective, the fees are going up about 3 cents for commercial, about 27 cents per square foot for office institutional, and about 28 cents a square foot for industrial flex. And finally, for fire, this shows, again, the growth-related expenditures. which are about $4.3 million from the previous slides. And then the estimated revenue is about $2.8 million. Now, the reason the revenue does not match expenditures is because we had to grant a credit for debt. And one of the things we have to do with impact fees is make sure that new development isn't paying twice, once through the impact fee, and then again through a future stream of revenue. And since you got your asset base through debt financing, we have to account for that in the calculation methodology. The police facilities, again, a consumption-based approach, townwide service area, because police services are provided uniformly townwide. The components include facility space as well as police vehicles. The demand here from new development is about 5,000 square feet of new police building space and about 15 new pieces of vehicle or apparatus, and that has a growth-related cost of about almost $2.2 million. The proposed fees are shown here. Single-family house is about $754. That's an increase of $147 over the current fee. Multifamily increases about $68. And then for commercial retail, we've got a $1.03 increase there per square foot, a 17-cent square foot increase for office institutional, and about 16 square foot or 16-cent increase for industrial flex. And then in terms of revenue, the $2.2 million in cost are shown against the revenue there, and they almost equal. Now, turning our attention to water, it gets a little more complicated. We're doing a plan-based approach here based on specific projects. It's very common when we have a closed infrastructure system, and what I mean by closed system is it means we control how much capacity there are. With, for instance, with the wastewater treatment plant, we may know that it has 10 million gallons a day of capacity. It doesn't have 11, it doesn't have 12. That's very different than roads. Roads can have different capacities based on the level of service you're willing to tolerate as a community. And so since we have a closed system, we tend to lean on a plan-based approach. The service area is only the Florence utility service area. It does not include the other service providers within the area. And the components are transmission, storage, and supply. This is the water IIP, which is basically the equivalent of the tables that I've been showing you that show that new development is generating the need for 5,000 square feet of additional police space. We're just showing it in a plan here for the water IIP. The water lines are about $1.4 million. The storage component's about $1.2 million. And the well component's about $2.7 million. And then here are the calculated fees. All of the fees are going down. The 3/4 inch, or excuse me, the 5/8 inch meter, which is represented at the top there by 0.625, that and the 3/4 inch meter are the typical single family connections. And as you can see, both of those are going down. And again, here's the cash flow. You will see that the expenditures are about $5.4 million. The projected revenue is $4.5 million over the 10 years. Now, here's an important caveat here, is the revenue, you will eventually pay yourself that $5.4 million. It's just that we're showing 10 years worth of revenue. So you will recoup all of that revenue. It's just going to take 13 or 14 years to recoup all of those costs. So at some point during the process, we'll probably switch from a plan-based approach to a cost recovery so that you can recoup for facilities that you've constructed that are on this IIP today. And finally, wastewater, excuse me, not finally, we've still got streets to do. Plan-based approach used here. Again, Florence Utility Service Area is our service area. There is a credit for future debt service, and the components are collection and treatment. Here's the wastewater IIP. We're projected to spend about $1.9 million on extensions or lines, our collection lines, and then for wastewater treatment, the projected expenditure is about $24 million. And the fees here are going up slightly for the single family, about $260 and $818, depending on whether you're on a 5/8 or a 3/4 inch meter. Some of the fees are going down. Some of them are going up at the larger meter size, and that has to do with changes in capacity ratios over the last fee study. And then here we show the total cost of this IIP is $26 million. However, over the 10 years, we're only going to collect about $10 million, okay? So again, similar to water, you will collect all of that $26 million. It's just that you're going to collect the $10 million over the next 10 years. And finally, streets. We are basically doing a hybrid of the consumption and the plan-based approach, a town-wide service area, and we're looking at arterial road capacity. These projects here are what we call the road IIP. There's a total project cost of about $112 million. And when you compare that to the number of lane miles proposed, we get a weighted average cost per lane of about $1.1 million. And these potential projects are used to derive the weighted cost per lane mile that we will see shortly in the fee calculation itself. At the top of the page here, we're using average miles per trip, and then the cost per additional lane mile of $1.1 million. And there's six lane miles planned, or 6.1 lane miles planned over the next 10 years. And so that gets a 10-year growth cost of about $6.7 million. And so that's how we get our capital cost per VMT, or vehicle mile of travel. And you can see here the proposed fees are about $22.50 for a single-family unit, which is an increase of $164. The multifamily units are increasing about $247. Office and industrial are both going down on a per square foot basis, and the commercial retail is going up about 76 cents per square foot over the current fee amounts. This shows the projection of street-related revenue. Again, because it's a consumption-based approach, the fees and revenues the costs and revenues almost match up here. 6.7 in cost at the top, and about 6.7 in revenue at the bottom. Then this is very difficult to read because it's got so much text on it, but it's showing in green your proposed fees next to your current fees. So when we add up the non-utility fees, the full freight for a single family is $5,892, which is about an $865 increase over your current fees. These multifamily units are increasing about $571 per unit over the current fee structure. The commercial retail is increasing about $783 per square foot, industrial about $1,262 per square foot, and office about $101 per square foot. And for your utility meters, you're going up slightly, $915 for a single family house for water, and you're going down about $260 in wastewater. And finally, we oftentimes do comparisons between you and other jurisdictions, and we understand why folks are interested in that. And we typically do these comparisons by a single family unit because it gets complicated when you start comparing all the different land use types, but we certainly have that information if you want more detail. But we tend to think in terms of what does this mean to the average house. And so you can see here, Florence, the proposed fees are outlined in blue, and the full freight is about $9,357 per unit. And that tends to be somewhere middle of the pack. The proposed fees we're doing in Coolidge right now are about $7,000. The proposed fees that we've done in Casa Grande are about $9,941. Gilbert's at $16,000. We're doing Avondale right now. Their proposed fees are $16,888. Goodyear's at $18,000. Those are proposed as well. Glendale we're doing. Those are at $10,154. And then you've got Pinal County. And so when you look at the cities, you're actually on the lower end. But then again, the counties are lower than you except for one service area, which clocks in at $92.14. But you have to remember the counties are limited in terms of what fees that they can collect. And so they're not providing water and sewer by and large. And so that's one of the reasons their fees tend to be lower than the municipalities. And so I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the presentation I just made, or any questions you have about development fees and their application going forward that you may have.
I'm going to start by asking if there's any members of council that would like to go first. Councilmember Hughes.
I was wondering, at what point do you revisit during the 10 years to see if the projections are on?
Good question. Good question. So the Act now actually prescribes that you have to update the fees every 5 years. Now, most of our clients in Arizona were doing that anyway because the growth is so fast in most communities. And frankly, once you do impact fees, it's not a static structure. They should be revisited every 5 years just because of changes in demographics, changes in growth rates, changes in costs, et cetera. But the Act does prescribe an update every 5 years.
Will that ever be in a smaller increment? If it shows, do you look at them midpoint, like 2.5 years, 3?
Yes, so some communities do opt to do it quicker than every 5 years. And I can tell you, before this act, in the early 2000s, when Queen Creek was growing exponentially, we were under a contract to update their fees every year because things were changing so dramatically. But I don't think that's going be an issue here. I think that as long as you're clocking in every 4 or 5 years, you're going to be fine.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wall?
Does that mean that the fees stay the same during that period?
By and large, you are allowed to peg the fees to some sort of construction index in order to keep up with inflation. So, for instance, if a standard way of doing that is calibrating it to the Engineering News and Record, which publishes regional cost index. It's almost like the consumer price index for construction. And so if for this region the prices went up 2.1%, you would simply by ordinance each year elevate the fees 2.1%. Now not everybody does that, but you can do that.
Are there any other council members?
I have a question. Your total projected cost for roads was $112 million, but we're only going to spend $6 million.
For which one? I'm sorry. So that's a good question. So I didn't want to get too much in the weeds here, but what we did here was the city just has to, or the town just has to build 6 lane miles, okay? Rather than in your previous study where basically the study set out, you're going to build roads X, Y, and Z. Well, that sort of pins you in, or hems you in. So what we wanted to do was create a system that allows adaptability. So, for instance, if you have a catalytic economic development project that comes to town and all of a sudden changes the development dynamic geographically, you haven't locked yourself into building roads A, B, and C because now you have to go build roads, L, M, and O, right? So what we wanted to do is add flexibility and say, the model says you have to build 6 lane miles. You're going to choose any 6 lane miles off of this list of 101. We just used the total to get the weighted average cost per lane mile to use in the fee study.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
I don't like it, but it makes sense though. We're only going to 6 miles in 10 years. That don't sound right.
Mr. Billingsley?
Sorry for raising my hand instead of pushing the button. I apologize. Councilmember Anderson, I think I can help with the response as well. If you look at the projects that are on the board that accumulate 112 million plus, those are all, and we put a lot of vetting and many meetings into this, those are all likely projects that could need to be completed in the next 10 years. But when you look at that list, it's a very large list, it's a very expensive list, and when you do a development impact fee study, you have to balance the benefits and the burdens, and the burdens in this case is cost of those fees and competitiveness with our neighbors. So Chris Salas and I spent many hours rubbing our heads together trying to figure out what was going to be a logical termini, if you will, in terms of number of lane miles that we can guarantee need to be constructed in that next 10-year period. And that's how we arrived at a little over 6 miles, is we're very confident that whether we have development impact fees or not, or whether development comes to the table to build these roadways, just based on capacity needs alone, we will have to construct at minimum that 6 lane miles in the next 10 years, and that's how we arrived at that. The methodology that you see above you, I've employed elsewhere, including Maricopa, and it's great to have flexibility, because if areas like Dobson Farms take off, which as we sit here today, it appears that more of our development is going to occur to the north in the Anthem area. But if Dobson Farms were to take off, at least we'd have the capacity under the existing fee structure to flex that into some of these roadways that are on the list instead of just associating the list with projected improvements north of the river, if that makes sense.
Does this include HER funding?
No, sir. This is just development impact fees based on new growth and projected new growth in Florence.
Okay.
What would be interesting to be able to look at on these presentations, especially when we are comparing with other municipalities, would be their population size. Because when you look at what they're bringing in based upon their population size, it gives a different perspective, a different picture. One of the concerns that I have, and maybe that's something that we're going to have to be creative with as a town and as a council, is that when we're looking at what our rates are, some of the frequent phrases that we hear are our impact fees are higher. People are having trouble, and I know looking at it at a presentation, it's different than looking at it at real life, but when you're looking at the different communities, there are different factors that go into them. So say somebody was looking at building a 2,000 square foot nursing home or, you know, a home or something of that nature. Those impact fees in our community do seem high in comparison to the communities around when we're trying to bring in growth. What I'm trying to say is we're going to need to be creative as a council if we do adopt these fees in regards to how we're going to bring in businesses and how we're going to work with growth in our community.
Agreed.
Ms. Cortez?
So I'm one of the new ones, and so I'm a little uneducated when it comes to some of this, so these questions might be elementary, but I always believe treat everything like it's somebody's first day, and so I'm sure there's people in the audience kind of confused as I am. So 2 questions. One, when you talk about the impact fee for multifamily versus residential, is that per unit?
Per unit, per apartment unit.
So not the whole complex?
Exactly.
Okay, because I was like,
Per unit.
what?
Yeah.
And then if we were to ask to do lower fees, how does that impact us?
Well, that's a tricky question. So there are several ways to go about lowering the fees. I mean, the first option is, you know, if we came in the door, I'm just going to use round numbers. I'm not going to use the numbers up here. So let's just say the draft impact fee is $5,000. And you chose to, you could just arbitrarily decide to adopt 75% of that or 50% of that, okay? But the problem with that is you still have to build the $5,000 level or $5,000 level capital improvement plan. It's just the money now has to come from the general fund, okay? So you've exposed yourself financially. So we always tell clients that if you're going to lower the fees, and one of the first questions we ask in any engagement is there a number that you want? Because, I mean, and that's it, I'm not trying to be facetious, but it's a real question, because there are some communities where you know there is a tolerance for X dollars, or there's an expectation that the fee isn't going to be any larger than X, right? And so knowing that, you can you can do the fees organically. And what I mean by that is if the fee is higher than you want, then what you could do is just take out components. So for instance, the park component has land, it has improvements, I think it has trails. So you could just take out the land component or the trail component and say, we are going to fund that with general fund dollars. That way, if now the fee's at $4,000, you just now have to build a $4,000 level CIP, so there is no general fund exposure there. See what I mean? Because what happens is a lot of communities get into trouble because they slash the fees and then they say, well, we don't have enough money to build the fire station yet. Well, yeah, that's because you slashed the fees. You were supposed to build it, and impact fees were only supposed to cover 50% of it.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Yes, this is probably for Brent, but in the downtown area, do we have to pay development fees for new buildings being built downtown?
Well, that depends. If it's on a lot that already has an existing building and that building is going to be demolished and replaced by another building, no. If it's on a lot that has never had a building on it, yes. If it is on a lot that in the last few years has had a building on it, that's something that's debatable. But yeah, if it's a vacant, undeveloped lot, like we had the infill developer in here, Carl Joseph Holmes, I want to say. Larry's here. J. Carl Holmes. Joseph Carl Holmes, I didn't get it right. Joseph Carl Holmes, those are all vacant lots that have never been developed before, so yes, they have to pay development impact fees, yes.
But I'm more concerned about lots in the historic district, where buildings have burned down and things like that. Some of those lots, I don't know if they were ever built on or not, but we have a lot of vacant lots.
We'd have to research that and see if there was a building on it at the time where the development impact fee was approved. If that building burnt down 20 years ago and there weren't development impact fees, then yes, they'd have to pay a development impact fee on that lot. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to see us come up with some kind of incentive for the downtown area. That's just my personal opinion.
I agree with you.
You could, you can incentivize, but typically what happens is if you waive the fees, you just have to make it up from another source. So we've had clients to do that. You set up a fund that to encourage downtown development. If you waive $100,000 in fees, you transfer $100,000 into the fee program.
I understand.
Mr. Billingsley?
During the last 3 years, we've done that twice, where we worked with an individual, and both times it was redoing apartment buildings and fixing those apartment buildings, where we actually picked up a portion of those development impact fees out of the general fund. So in those cases, it's a budgeted expense that we put in the budget because we can't waive those fees. We just have to pay for the portion of those fees that we would agree to by contract to pay for that out of the general fund. So that just takes money away from other things we do as a city, and we put it towards those type of projects if we choose to do that.
Thank you.
Or a flipped perspective could be, instead of banking X amount of dollars at the end of the year, we're putting those dollars into revitalizing our community. All right. Well, if there's no further questions or comments, I thank you for your time in this presentation.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda, unless a council member or member of the public objects at the time the agenda item is called. Item A is to recommend the Arizona State Board on Geographic and Historic Names the renaming of portions US 60 and Pinal and Gila counties as the Governor Rose Mofford Memorial Highway. B, approval of the purchase and installation of a self-contained breathing apparatus compressor for Fire Station 542 from United Fire Equipment Company in an amount not to exceed $49,000. C, approval to suspend the Town of Florence special event vendor permit rules for Road to Country Thunder event to allow the Greater Florence Chamber of Commerce to coordinate vendors and collect vendor fees as a fundraiser during the Road to Country Thunder event on April 6, 2019. D, authorization to award a contract with Casa Grande Courier for delivery of samples through the procurement bidding process. Contract to ratify expenditures July 2018 through December 2018. Contract to then begin January 7th, 2019 through June 30th, 2020, in an amount not to exceed $49,799.10. E is to approve an award contract to KP Ventures Well Drilling Pump, LLC, to rebuild well number 4, located at 425 East Ruggles, in an amount not to exceed $96,038.59. Item F is approval of accepting the Register of Demands ending November 30th, 2018 in the amount of $2,435,000 $543.36. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your consent agenda. Is there any member of the council or public that would like any item removed at this time?
I just have a clarification on item D.
Let's go ahead and remove it so we can talk about it. So with that, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item D.
So moved.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, all items A through F, with the removal of item D.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Councilmember Wall?
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that the amount not to exceed is shown for the record as $46,799.10. And having said that, I'll make a motion to approve item D from the consent agenda.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. Item 8A, discussion, approval, disapproval of appointment of board and commission members. Ms. Lisa Garcia.
First, Mayor and members of council, I'd like to apologize because underneath the information action, it does say information only. It was agendized on the agenda for action, so I'd like to apologize for that. Next, Town Clerk's Office has been advertising the vacant position since October of 2018. The positions that we're bringing forward are those that were received. We do want to note for the record that after the appointments tonight, it will leave 2 openings on the Arts and Culture Commission, 2 openings on the Library Advisory Board, 1 opening on Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and there are 2 alternate seats available on Planning and Zoning Commission. At the next meeting, we will be bringing an application for an alternate for the Planning and Zoning Commission, so that would leave 1 seat if council so appoints that person. So tonight we are asking for the reappointment of Christine Reed, Lynn Smith, and Betty Wheeler to the Historic District Advisory Commission with terms expiring December 31st, 2022. We're asking for the new appointment of Carol Michael to the Historic District Advisory Board with a term expiring on December 31st, 2022. We're asking for the reappointment of Sherry Berger to the Library Advisory Board with a term expiring December 31st, 2021. We're asking for the appointment of Douglas Stinson to the Parks and Recreation Board with a term to expire December 31st, 2021, and the reappointment of Gary Pronzo to the Planning and Zoning Commission with a term to expire on December 31st, 2022. We would encourage all members of council, all members of staff to continue to reach out to people that are interested in serving their community so that we can fill our seats with people who want to be active on any board or commission. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay. There's no questions. With that, I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve item 8A, Roman I through V.
A second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. Thank you to all who applied and are willing to serve our community. Item B is Resolution 1685-19. This is a discussion, approval, disapproval of a resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, adopting the 2019 Land Use Assumptions and Infrastructure Improvements Plan for the Town of Florence. Ms. Lisa Garcia.
Mayor, members of council, we just heard the PowerPoint presentation from Carson Bise on the development impact fees that were subject to the land use and improvement plan, the infrastructure improvement plan, and the land use assumption plan. The Town of Florence the Town Council first heard this at the October 1st, 2018 meeting, and it was posted on the Town of Florence website. As well, the Town Council held a work session on October 15th. We held a public hearing with on December 3rd, and again, we did have comments from the public, and the plan was updated to include those comments. At this time, we're asking council to approve the resolution, and we will proceed with the adoption of the impact fees. As you can see by the keynote dates, that tonight's meeting was the first work session of the development impact fees, and in March, we will have a public hearing on those impact fees, followed by fee adoption, and then it is a considerable amount of time before those fees will actually be effective. It would be with everything going as planned, as stated in your request for council action, those fees could not be put in place until July 1st, 2019.
Okay, with that, is there any conversation, any discussion?
Just a question. So tonight was a work session and a council meeting both?
Tonight, there's two different sections. And so where you talk about just the plan, and that is to put in the land use assumptions and the infrastructure improvement plans, you're adopting that plan. And then you will once again adopt another ordinance that will set your impact fees, and then we'll have to go out and go through the process of notifying the public as pursuant to the statutes, which would make that date be not effective until July 1, but you would not adopt those until, I believe it's March. Let me look again. Hold on. Actually, April 15th, 2019. Those fees will not be presented before you. But as Carson said, everything that's in this plan is also what sets how much the town of Florence needs to build out, what is our collection rate, and how much of the general fund will participate in paying for those improvements. And so tonight's study is definitely tied into those impact fees and how much the town of Florence will be contributing as part of our general fund.
Thank you.
With that, we need a motion.
Make a motion that we adopt Resolution 1685-19 as presented.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item C is Ordinance 669-19. This is the discussion, approval, disapproval of an ordinance of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, declaring certain real property hereafter described surplus for use by the town and the authorizing the sale thereof, declaring an emergency, and rescinding Ordinance 665-18. Ms. Lisa Garcia.
Mayor, as members of council, this piece of property will be familiar to you. On November 5th, 2018, we did adopt an ordinance which sold this basically to another person. After we adopted that ordinance, the person went back and determined that the lot was not going to be big enough to be able to do what they wanted to do, and thus withdrew their offer. Since that time, we did receive another full price offer for the lot located at 202 East Saguaro, and we are bringing forth a recommendation for the full price of $6,925, and that is from Donald E. Foster. If the town council goes ahead and approves this, it'll put the property back on the tax rolls, and the town of Florence will once again start collecting taxes on the property. Happy to answer any questions that the council has.
I certainly think it's always a great thing when we can put it back on the tax rolls and get it off of ours. So is there any member of council that has anything at this time? With that, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 669-19 as read.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item D is ordinance number 666-19, discussion, approval, disapproval of an ordinance of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, declaring certain real property hereafter described surplus for use by the town and authorizing sale thereof and declaring an emergency. Ms. Lisa Garcia.
Mayor, members of council, this is for a property located in Florence Gardens. This is 3818 North South Dakota Avenue. The town did receive a full price offer. This is the first time that this lot has been before you. The full price offer is $8,000 from a Miss Linda Payne. And so if the council does accept that offer, we will move forward, and again, the property will be placed back on the tax rolls. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions? With that, we need a motion.
Make a motion to adopt ordinance number 666-19 as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E is discussion approval, disapproval of a lease agreement between the Town of Florence and Lease Terenzio for Suite 201 at the Silver King Marketplace.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As you said, the lease agreement is between the town and Lisa Terenzio, who is the new or owner of a new business called Desert Yoga and Health. And she would like to lease space in Silver King Suite 201 to open a yoga studio. She intends to offer classes, yoga classes, as well as wellness and healthy cooking classes. And Ms. Terenzio was the sole respondent to the request for proposal process we opened up in November. And so we discussed the lease terms with her, and they are set at $3 a square foot, which is consistent with other tenants in the Silver King Marketplace. She'll also be responsible for paying the government property lease excise tax in the amount of about $1,200 a year. Ms. Terenzio is here this evening. If you'd like for her to come up and say a few words about her business or have any questions for her.
Okay, come on up.
Good evening. She gets some free advertising.
Yes, she did. Go ahead.
So the intention is to start a small yoga studio. We were also offering meditation classes for children, revolving around meditation, arts and crafts, that sort of thing. Our target audience is probably largely people of middle age, some elderly folks, children with disabilities, and their parents or caregivers that help them. Business is projected to be open 5 days a week, closed on Sunday and Monday. And what else can I tell you? We'll have some other teachers as well. I'm received my certification this past year in yoga. I'm getting my health coaching certification. But we'll also have other teachers that will be working with the studio to provide a little bit of diversity. Some of those teachers are already have offered classes at venues in Florence.
Okay, thank you.
Is this going to be a daytime, nighttime, or both? Or?
Okay, so the hours right now would be Tuesday through Friday. We're looking at about 11:30 in the morning through approximately 8:30. On Fridays, we'll same starting time, closing a bit earlier, and Saturdays approximately 10 to 5. So somewhere in there making up the 35 hours that we need to be open pursuant to the lease.
So it'll be a mix
of hours.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I do want to just share a few things. So I learned that the prior tenant was no longer going to be in that location because I had actually gone to purchase a gift certificate and she was not there.
Okay.
I'm sharing this just to put everybody on the same page because I also know not all members of council have this information. So when I reached out to our town manager and Jennifer Evans, it was on a Friday because I've been actively trying to recruit for businesses to come into our community. First and foremost, I want to say that the town of Florence is open for business and we're very business friendly. I received the information and I was able to share with somebody else. However, by that time, we as a council did not know that that RFP had gone out. Typically, our communication is better and we have that opportunity to communicate thoroughly with the public in regards to, what's open, when is it open, and things of that nature. It didn't happen in this case. So moving forward, I do know that there was one other person that was working with Ms. Evans at the time and wanting to put in a business as well. I'm not here to discuss that. That's not on the agenda at this time. What I do want to share is your business in that location. I do have a few concerns. The building is older. Well, it's very historic. It's old, obviously. And during the parade on Main Street, I noticed some literature that was being disseminated throughout the community with your grand opening in February that had yet to be approved by council. So I didn't think that was in best taste to advertise that you were grand opening prior to receiving an actual approval. So we're here today. My concerns with your specific advertisement was, some of the pound classes, some of the yoga, and knowing that prior to, in the Silver King, upstairs to the right, there was a yoga studio that was up there, and the lady that rented below did have some issues in regards to the dust coming down from the ceiling and covering her clothing that she was selling at the time and some of her belongings. So now you're going to potentially be above a restaurant. So where does that leave us in regards to health codes? If there's movement that causes dust. So this is just a conversation that I want to put out there for council to consider in regards to how we're moving forward. With that, is there any other member of the council that would like to speak? Councilmember Cortez.
So I follow with the mayor on the activity that would be upstairs and the possible issues it could cause for the business below. I also flip it to issues that you might have because of the business below and the business that would be across the hall from you and below her. If you've spent any time in the Silver King, it can become very loud. Laughter, especially on a busy day when all of the shops are busy and the restaurant is full, it becomes very loud. And so I'm trying to figure out, how are you going to meditate and do yoga and be relaxed when from below you all of a sudden hear Corey's laughter, and her laughter is loud. I am there a lot and I laugh very loud. So as somebody who does yoga, I would be unrelaxed. It just wouldn't be a good environment because it would be disruptive to my meditation state. My other concern is that because this is owned by the town, I feel that we owe a duty to our residents and our taxpayers that the businesses we put in these buildings generate tax revenue to us. And so there's no retail. So other than the minimal amount we charge for rent, there's really no way to generate any additional dollars for the town. I like the mayor, I want business to come here. I just want businesses to be in spaces that fit their business so you're successful. Do you know what I mean? And so I just want to make sure that when we put a business in that space that it's going to thrive and that everyone in that building is going to also benefit from that business being there, as well as that business benefiting from the businesses that are in the building.
Are there any other comments, questions? Councilmember Hawkins?
Well, I wasn't thinking about the noise part. I'm not into yoga. I didn't even think about that, but on the dust part, that's because of the way it's designed. I mean, that's the only way to prevent that would be to put in a drop ceiling some way, I suppose, but that would cost quite a bit of money. Yeah, I didn't know there was a dust problem, but I guess with those exposed air conditioning, not vents, but whatever. Huh?
Ductwork.
Ductwork, yeah. I was having a senior moment. But anyway, yeah, I don't know how, I didn't know this is the first I've heard of it being a problem. I hadn't even thought about it, but until now. So, I don't know, maybe that's, yeah, a few things there that were brought up that I didn't think about. maybe, that's all I have.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I'd like to ask Ms. Evans a question. Ms. Evans, there's a lot of people that are interested in doing business on Main Street. How many people did you email in regards to this specific property being out?
Including Ms. Terenzio, I emailed three individuals who had expressed an interest in this space, and those are the three people who had contacted me. Aside from that, we posted the request for proposal on our town website.
Okay. Was I one of the three that deferred?
I'm sorry?
Was I one of the three that deferred somebody to you?
Your name did not come up, so.
No worries.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the community that wanted to say anything regarding to this lease? Yes, ma'am, come up. Ms. Greer.
Yes, thank you. I need a stool. My name is Sharon Greer, and I am the proprietor of What's Upstairs, located in the Silver King Marketplace on the second floor across from Suite 201. I'm in 202. And when I heard the space was available, I was excited. And the bottom line is, I do not believe that it's conducive to a yoga studio because of the noise and everything that you've already made mention. And I do yoga, enjoy it very much, and it should be very tranquil. The dust is a situation. We don't complain about it. We live with it. And so with anything that goes on in the building, there is the dust situation. But that's minimal because we're fortunate to be in this beautiful building. I was hoping that a business would go in upstairs because I do have a problem getting people up the stairs into my business. Once they do get upstairs, they're surprised. They didn't even know the business existed. I'm trying new ways to try and get people upstairs. The Fudge Shop and Bucks for Styles are very helpful in sending people upstairs. Therefore, it became What's Upstairs. And when we have any event on Main Street, they come in and they're surprised that the businesses are in the hotel and that there are businesses upstairs, and they just love the building to pieces. We do have more and more foot traffic coming down Main Street now, especially with the addition of the new businesses, and I was hoping that something would come in upstairs that's probably on the line of retail that would stimulate my business and stimulate and complement the other businesses that are already situated in the hotel. Michelle did mention about the noise. It's a happy place. And there is, people come in and have meetings in there and they socialize. And while they're in picking up their lunch, they'll run upstairs and check my business out and do a little power shopping. And I was hoping that would be the same thing with the new business that goes in there, that we would all complement each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, could I ask a question as well?
Yes, ma'am.
To Ms. Evans, please. So you stated that the yoga shop was the only business that had expressed interest to the point where they filled out the business plan and everything, or?
They submitted the business plan and other required documentation that was requested in the request for proposal document. And that Ms. Terenzio's proposal was submitted before the 3 p.m. December 4th deadline. And that was the only one we got before that deadline that
encompassed all the documents, or just the only one altogether that you got?
Through that period, through that 30-day period, that was the only one we received.
That was the only one you received?
Once we opened up the process. We did receive another business plan prior to that. That was returned to Ms. Greer for additional, with comments, but I did not receive that back.
Okay.
Was there any communication in regards to not receiving it back?
As far as?
Why you didn't receive it back?
I don't recall any specific conversations offhand. Do you?
Okay.
I'm trying to remember now at this point, but
I recall the computer crashed. She was unable
Yes.
to get it. She was
Right.
interested and wanted to proceed.
and I found out about that after the deadline, the actual time deadline.
Okay. I'm going to refocus back on this sole agenda item and reflect back on the events that led us here and how everything was proposed. At this time, is there any other council member that has anything to say?
I just wanted to make some quick comments, if
Go
that's
ahead.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I struggle with this one personally because I feel that as somebody that, our involvement with that property is a little bit more complicated than, say, a normal town situation. But so I don't believe it's really our say to say whether the business is going to thrive there or not going to thrive there. I feel that the market will sort of determine that. And as far as I understand the frustration with the dust and sympathize with the other people, I just don't know if there's anything we could necessarily do with that. I guess I just wanted to say I see both sides to this, and I feel, just to be fair, that I do want to be business forward. I want to be business friendly, and I always welcome your business on Main Street, and I want those businesses there, but I also do want to see you succeed. So I guess I don't really have any constructive criticism. I guess I am also sharing sort of frustration with how we've gotten to this point, not with the businesses that have presented themselves as opportunities, but just how we've gotten to this point, because I know that there is interest in businesses in coming to Florence, and I'd like to see them, all find a space where we can house them. So, I don't know I guess I want to know, maybe Lisa or Brent, what our options are tonight. Is there an option to open this back up so we can, fully get our options? I mean, what are our options moving forward? I guess, how can we do better next time with this type of thing, or?
Mayor, council member, I suggest we go to e-session based on the conversations that we've had to get legal advice.
I guess that's up to the mayor, isn't it?
Okay. Well, I respect the suggestion to go to e-session. Just in reflecting, and we will go to e-session. In reflecting back, it's always on the agenda of what a yes, no would mean and what a no vote would mean in regards, as well as we can always change it. So at this time, let's go to e-session. I need a motion.
Well, could we table this and then have a e-session at another time, or do you want to do it right now?
Actually, what I was going to do was to say I was going to, prior to Councilmember Larson speaking, say I want to make a motion instead of approving this, but to send this back out through the RFP process. So that way we have proper communication with all residents and anybody who wants to do business in Florence and going through that process.
I think that's what the e-session would be about, to get legal advice on that.
So let's go to e-session.
Well, question though, the recommended action is for a motion to approve or disapprove, really.
Okay, then I'm going to make a motion to disapprove this lease agreement.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
I'm also.
So it dies on the floor?
Hawkins, I don't think Councilmember Hawkins.
No, I'll go no on it. I thought we could postpone or table it and then have an e-session at an appropriate time.
You recused yourself, I know you did.
Okay. Yes, I have to recuse myself because I was a tenant in the 202 suite, and it's not my 2 years prior, or I have up to 2 years before I can vote. So that'll be in June 1.
Okay, so a roll call vote, Ms. Lisa Garcia.
The motion maker was mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Seconded was vice mayor. Yes. And the motion was to disapprove the lease agreement.
Yes.
So, Mayor Walters, you go first.
Nay. Wait. I don't want to fall into this. Hang on. The motion is to disapprove. For clarification of everybody's point.
Yeah, so you can say, I approve to not approve the agreement.
I approve to not approve the agreement.
Okay, Councilmember, or Vice Mayor Anderson.
I approve not to approve the agreement.
Okay, Councilmember Hawkins.
I don't know what they mean by approve or not approve. I vote no on it.
Are you saying you approve, you're voting no on the contract?
Pardon me?
Are you saying that you're voting no on the contract?
Well,
Meaning you don't want this to move forward?
I don't know, understand how they're voting.
yes, that's what I mean.
Councilmember Wall?
I vote no on the motion.
You're voting no that you didn't, on the motion to, it's confusing, I'm sorry.
I vote no on the motion not to approve.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Larson?
Can I ask some clarifying questions?
Yes.
No, there's a call on the floor.
I'm feeling that this is all changing. Okay. All right. I want to be business friendly. This is the only one that was approved at the time, so I'm going to say yes, I want to see it move forward. They're the only one that submitted on time. Yes, I would like to see it continue forward as they're the only ones who responded in time. Does that make sense? You understand why I'm voting?
The only motion on the floor is either to disapprove the agreement or to approve the agreement. I would like to start over. If you are disapproving the agreement, please say aye. If you are not wanting to approve the agreement, not wanting to disapprove agreement, please say nay. I'm going to start completely over. So if you want to disapprove the agreement, you're going to vote aye. If you do not want to disapprove the agreement, you're going to vote yay, okay? Or nay, I'm sorry.
Oh, now you got me.
Nay. Does everybody understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mayor Walter. If you want to disapprove, if you want to not move forward with the agreement, you're voting aye or yes. And if you want to...
Is this a game of how much confusion can we confuse the council? I'm pretty sure we've been in this boat with a few other items that have appeared before.
So the motion on the floor is to not approve the agreement. So
I do not approve the agreement.
So the aye means that you're not approving the agreement. The nay means that you're voting down that motion, okay? So Mayor is an aye.
Well, now you confused me because you said earlier.
I know, we're starting over. We're saying that the motion on the floor is to not approve the agreement. So if you vote aye, you're voting to not approve the agreement.
Aye, aye.
Councilmember Hawkins.
Explain it one more time.
So the motion on the floor is a motion to not approve the agreement. So if you vote aye, you're voting with the affirmative to not approve the agreement.
Well, like I said, I'd like to see us table it, but, and have an E-session. But anyway, God, can't believe we're here. I want to see businesses come in here, and I hate to see us pick and choose what businesses can or cannot, but I do agree with the premise that, we need to generate sales tax. In my opinion, that's what that is for, is an incubator to bring in retail, I think, is our main objective, but I didn't know we didn't, I guess what's that considered, a service instead of a retail, or?
Yes.
I mean, there's no sales tax involved, or? I mean, when people.
I believe it's considered a service.
Service, yeah, okay, well. Well. I'm going to vote to not approve.
Councilmember Wall.
I vote no.
Councilmember Larson.
Sorry. So the second time that you said this.
The vote on the motion that the mayor made was to not approve the agreement.
Not approve it. So if
So
I
if you
want to
vote
approve,
aye,
I would say nay.
If you do not agree with the motion that's on the floor, you say
And
nay.
I'm going to say nay.
Okay. Councilmember Cortez.
I'm going to say yay and not.
Motion carries.
I want to not move forward, yes, right?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
the motion carries. The item has been voted down and will not appear before the council again.
Thank you. Again, I do want to say we look to future possibilities of you coming into our town. Thank you for your time. 8F is our next item. This time I'm going to turn it over to Chris Salas.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council, Madam Mayor. As probably everyone is aware of, as it relates to water and wastewater, we have state requirements for testing. That testing is performed by a laboratory. There are a few laboratories within the state of Arizona that are accredited for that testing. Based on our research, about almost every town uses, or city, uses Legend Technical Services for this testing. We've gone out for others in the past, and we've received very little interest on those and higher prices. I've been told there's one out-of-state provider, but that's the logistics don't make it very feasible. So the town has decided to use the City of Tempe's cooperative contract to purchase these services. And once again, these are state-required services, state-required testing that we are required to perform to make sure that the water leaving the plants meets a certain requirement and the water going out into our distribution system meets certain requirements.
All right. Any members of council have questions regarding this agenda item?
How often do we do this testing?
I'm sorry, what was
How often do we do the testing?
It depends on what we're testing for, sir. So on the wastewater side, we sample 5 times a week and we send those tests out.
Okay.
Oftentimes 6 times a week.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve, what am I approving here?
The award contract with Legends Technical Services.
Agenda item 8F.
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Salas. Item G is discussion approval, disapproval to award contract to 315 Fire Protection Services for the installation of a fire suppression system in Public Works Building located at 425 East Ruggles in an amount not to exceed $107,832.
Once again, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. When I first arrived at our building, I noticed that there were certain improvements done that looked like they were done after the fact. Working with building safety at the time and getting some advice from an architect, we decided the best course of action would be to do a comprehensive life safety analysis. We worked with Mr. again, John Kemp, town's fire marshal, to come to this conclusion. And this was a comprehensive look through the Public Works building for all code compliances. We did the best that we could to use the international existing building code, giving the same rights to ourselves as we would any other business owner, trying to figure out what was at one time code compliant and what is no longer code compliant, and allowing ourselves to receive that same grandfathering right as anyone else would. The town has identified certain incorrect electrical systems. We have gone through and fixed those non-code compliant issues. But one of the large code compliant issues is the size of the building versus the construction methods. The building is too large for the current construction methods, whether it's looked at through the IBC or the IFC, and so that requires modification. There are only essentially 2 options to do that, is to put in a firewall, which if anyone's been in the Public Works building, it's a very tall building. It would be extremely expensive to do something like that. And again, logistically, doesn't really work because our building operates as essentially a large building, and it wouldn't operate very correctly with a wall dividing our building. Our other option by code that would allow this is to install an automatic fire suppression system known as fire sprinklers. And that was the method we chose. And, you know, again, Chief Strayer, John Kemp, that is the gold standard is fire sprinklers. A firewall, while protecting property, doesn't oftentimes save lives. Fire sprinklers do save lives. That allow the people time to get out of a burning building. So the town is, again, has been talked about for the last few years, is working to make our own buildings code compliant, and this is one step in that. One of many steps that we've taken already, but one of steps that we are taking currently.
All right, I do appreciate you taking those steps. Are there any questions regarding this agenda item? With that, we need a motion.
I make a motion to approve awarding a contract to 315 Fire Protection Services for the installation of a fire suppression system in the Public Works Building located at 425 East Ruggles Street in an amount not to exceed $107,832.
I second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item H is the discussion, approval, disapproval of awards associated with the CIP-20 Recharge Facility. Mr. Chris Salas, and I see Mr. Billingsley.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, this is once again one of those culminations of a long-term investment that the town has made in our water future. Determination was made 2 budget cycles ago to try and pursue recharge as a viability option to extend our capabilities to build and develop in a water poor environment that is Arizona and is Pinal County. At that time, council budgeted funds to do permitting process through both ADEQ to close out the old polishing ponds and basins at the old Florence South wastewater treatment plant, the lagoon plant that's no longer in service, and secondarily to start down a permitting process with the Arizona Department of Water Resources to build a recharge facility. As council knows, we've approved, ADEQ has approved our closeout of the old plant and has allowed us to move forward with the recharge facility. We don't have our state approvals to be able to receive recharge credits yet. But in getting ready for that, this particular project is to construct the recharge facility itself. So we have the opportunity to take our treated effluent, recharge it, and receive recharge credits. So that's the background on this item.
So we went through a competitive bid process. We received bids on 2 different alternates, one of which was with electronic valve actuation and one without it. Certain members, we looked at and we evaluated. It was a $100,000 difference to have the electronic valve actuation. This is a very slow-moving process where the water takes days to fill up the basin. We ended up deciding not to choose the more expensive option and go with the cheaper option. There's also, from the initial bid, I would like to explain the initial bid to the 2 separate contract prices. The original bid that was received was deemed more than what the town wanted to spend. So I worked with the contractor to essentially do a deduct type of change order before starting the process, and we made modifications to that with the approval of the town's finance director and the town's manager. This was not something done by myself in a separate room. We worked on that to get, again, a deduct before that, and that's why the prices don't exactly match the original initial competitive bid. So we saved the town an initial, I think, $130,000 in my memory. I mean, this was a month and a half ago, but so we saved an additional $130,000 removing ancillary items that weren't deemed absolutely necessary. It was kind of a mission-critical project, so all of that was removed.
All right, Councilmember Hawkins.
Yep. If we don't get approval from the state, then do we need this? I mean, I think Brent said that, that we haven't gotten our credit approval or whatever. Is, if we bill this, we're going to get credit approval, or we might not, or what?
The process is almost a fun, how do I want to say? It's almost stepping through the steps of the process. I'm trying to think of what is called a formality now, in terms of we've provided a design, we've provided a model, we've provided the calculations and all of the elevations that were requested by the state, and we've followed state law to the letter. So we believe that we're going to get approved. That said, if you award this bid tonight, we won't break ground on it until we have that letter from the state, but we think that's coming shortly. Our last communication with them, they had one more question the week before Christmas, so we think we're very close to getting tentative approval, and then there's a public process that follows there.
Okay, so we're not actually going to build it until we have the...
We're going to make sure that we get the tentative approval before we break ground.
And we won't be on the hook for a contract with this contractor if we don't get the approval?
We're going to be fine.
Okay, that's all I was, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Wall?
I was looking through this action form, and I didn't see a entry in the mandatory pre-bid conference from JACO. I also didn't see the bid tab or the bid response for this project from JACO.
So I will be glad to explain that in more detail. Initially, there was one bid of approximately $597,000, and then a second, like I said, the alternate was $498 or something along those lines. What we did is we worked again through this entire contract, removing unnecessary pieces. One of the ways that the town saved $30,000 was a direct contract with JACO, which was the original earthwork company under Shoals. So when you remove that contract from under them, which is atypical, I'll be the first to admit it, they don't have an administrative cost. Their insurance is no longer insuring JACO's insurances. So without that, we are able to save money in an unusual set of circumstances. This is something that, again, I worked with them. They worked with me to get this price to a range where we were comfortable on that. So no, JACO was not, but they were an original member of the team. The only thing we're removing out is a separate contract to them. So they'll have to post bonds separately. They'll have to post insurances separately. But we're saving $30,000 on not having administrative costs.
Okay, so that explains the second action item on under this agenda. Is it's an association with Schultz. Okay.
Shoals was the primary contractor. Okay. And, but like I said, through this creative way by itself, we've saved 30,000 of the 100 and some thousand we've saved.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's no further questions, we need a...
I'd like to just address something with Councilman Hoffman's question. The state is encouraging all towns to do a recharge. This is going to be very common in the state now because you know about all the water problems. This is one of the solutions, is if all the towns start doing recharge, they can, I think Chandler's up to a 97% recharge rate right now.
Thank you for that. We need a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item 8HI as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, so we approved HI, but we also need the second item.
I make a motion that we approve agenda item 8HII.
I'll second that too.
Motion and the second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 9 is our manager's report.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, as you know, there's a written report in the binder, and I'll go over that briefly, but more importantly, we have a celebrity in front of us this evening. If Miss Renee Clicks would like to come forward, I think everyone on council is aware, but Sergeant Clicks just graduated from one of the most prestigious schools in the United States. That's the FBI Academy. And in this year, there were, how many graduates? 250. I think, I'm looking here, 249. And she, from Florence, Arizona, is one of those. We have one other graduate on our police force, and that is our chief, Dan Hughes. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the program, Dan?
Madam Mayor and council members, there's 800,000 police officers in this country approximately. Renee is one that was selected to go to the FBI Academy. In 1 year alone, there's less than 1,000 officers get this opportunity to go to this 10-week course. It's a management course set up for executive law enforcement personnel, people who are going to be command officers in the future, and it covers a variety of topics. Each one of these topics is authenticated by the University of Virginia, so she collected not only credit hours, but a lot of good information. And she is the first officer selected from Florence, and you do have to go through a vetting process. This goes all the way to the director's office to be approved, and we submitted her application. Once you get the application, she really has to go through quite a process, including a physical fitness test to go to the FBI Academy. Renee did well. She also picked up even some master's degrees credits during this that she'll be able to use later on. And I think it's going to be a great asset to the Florence Police Department. As I said, it covers 10 weeks and it covers a variety of managerial and leadership courses. Would you like to say something about it, Renee?
Thank you. And Madam Mayor and council members, just want to begin by just highlighting how impactful this program is and how honored, for one, that I get to go and be one of the first ones from Florence to go. It brought me great honor to be able to put our patch. They have these walls with all these patches from everyone that's gone. And we were missing off that wall, and to be able to put that patch on there and walk by there every day knowing that we're now there. I hope to see this as a trend in the future, that I won't be the last person from Florence to go. While I was there, I was able to take some great classes in addition to the PT getting up in the morning. We did have some graduate classes that I got to take. Some of them were counterterrorism. I got to study on law enforcement image. I did classes on contemporary police issues and challenges for leadership. And I must say, when going in there, I thought I'd be kind of drowned out since I'm a smaller agency and I'm a sergeant. I knew I was going with many other commanders and lieutenants and even chiefs of police. But I'll tell you, once I got there, the format they have there is very inclusive. All our classes were very open to discussion. So I was able to bring a lot back, and I'm really, really excited to apply a lot of what I learned, and not to mention the networking. We've had representatives from all over the country in 23 other countries, everywhere from Vietnam to Argentina to Brazil, and even Australia and a few other countries that were represented as well that I'm still in contact with. And 3 others from Arizona, Chandler, Payson, and Scottsdale.
Wow. What an honor. Thank you for representing Florence.
To complete the items on the written manager's report, I think we've talked a lot about the 2 parades, and there's an update with respect to that. It's important that I announce a partnership between Pinal County and the town of Florence regarding a request for proposals pertaining to 383 North Main Street in Florence. That's the old elections building and was the old recorder's office that burnt down some time ago. We're partnering with Pinal County to put together a proposal for economic development with respect to that lot. I'm going to skip over the leadership and governance item because we're not going to have that tonight. We'll bring that at the next meeting, having to do with one of our fire captains. And partnerships and relationships, Councilmember Wall and I had the opportunity to attend the Pinal County Economic Development Forum, and I was able to give a presentation at that meeting that was definitely helpful, and we built relationships through that. Transportation and infrastructure, this is a prelude into a furthering conversation regarding the north-south corridor. ADOT held their last north-south corridor meeting on November 27th at Pinal County. It's the first meeting that we've had in a year. ADOT is hoping to release its what we call a DEIS, Draft Environmental Impact Statement, for their Tier 1 Environmental Impact Study in the forthcoming months. We had multiple individuals that attended that meeting, including myself, and there will be more to come with respect to the DEIS. One of the items that I've included that's new to the agenda is not only the upcoming events and meetings and forums, but also current advertisements by the town. That is something that was requested by the mayor based on the agenda item that we just heard regarding the Silver King Hotel. So there are a number of advertisements that are open now, and there are 4 more that are under review at this time. In terms of success stories, I am continuing to provide updates with regard to state shared revenues. Good news, state shared revenues are still higher than projections. That's all I have.
Thank you. Department reports. Does anybody have any questions for them? I want to say that you guys are doing a great job. Really enjoyed the retirement celebration the other day, and also in regards to the leadership symposium for the Florence teens. Thank you so much for having it on Saturday. A, it allows me to be there all day with the kiddos, and B, they don't have to miss any school. I'm sure they're thrilled about that. All right, if there's no questions for them, our next call is call to the public. Is there anybody from the public that would like to say anything at this time? Closing call to the public. Our call to the council for current events only. Councilmember Hughes?
Thank you. I just wanted to bring to the public's attention that to kick off 2019, Pinal Partnership is going to be holding their annual discussion between the 5 Pinal County Board of Supervisors and the county manager. They will share the latest details on projects in the works, as well as talk about their priorities and challenges for the new year. I hope that you can register and that you won't miss. This is going to be done on January 24th, right here in Florence at the library. 7:30 is for breakfast, and to 8 o'clock for breakfast and networking, and from 8 to 9 is the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cortez?
I have nothing at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Larson?
There was a lot of great things highlighted tonight. One thing that I think that isn't quite getting enough attention is that we have a public forum scheduled for a Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Master Plan. So I just wanted to let people know that those are available for public input, as well as just reviewing where we're currently at. The first forum is on Wednesday, January 30th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. in the Anthem Parkside Community Center. The second forum is on Thursday, January 31st from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Library and Community Center downtown here. So I just wanted to let people know that that's something we'd appreciate your input on and the opportunity to come speak with us. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Wall?
I don't have anything tonight.
Councilmember Hawkins?
Well, I think Sergeant Clicks deserves a lot of recognition for going through the FBI program. It shows that we've been the safest town in Arizona the last 2 years, and it shows that our, well, one reason we are is because we have a police department that's very professional and cares about the community. And I think we all should show our appreciation. Anytime anybody in the audience that's watching should thank her for going through that. Also, the new pamphlet that the chamber came out with on Florence, it's really nice. You ought to stop by the chamber's office and check it out. They really did a good job on it. And then we don't want to forget the car show coming up February the 16th. My understanding is we're up to, I think, over 200 cars, and that's probably about twice as many as we had last year. So it should be a heck of a show. Just reminding everybody it's coming up. So.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Anderson.
I have a couple of things. I attended the Pinal County Water Augmentation earlier in the month. There's another meeting tomorrow. But most of the discussion was around the drought contingency plan. And the sad part is that our farmers are going to lose their water first. And it looks like by 2025, the farmers will not be getting any water out of the CAP. That's the projection now. And they're trying to figure out ways to get groundwater back into the farms. You know, the farms had their own wells years ago, but they pretty well abandoned those wells because they were using CAP water. Now they're looking at trying to reopen those wells, and they're talking about, cost of up to $1 million to do that because they have deep wells with big pipes. Now, CAP announced just day before yesterday that they would come up with something like 280,000 cubic feet of water for them, but that's not enough, so that's part of the problem that they're dealing with. Met with the IDA. I won't go into that because the IDA will come and present something to us probably within the next month or so about an approval of a project that they're working on. More exciting, today I attended a meeting representing Florence and the mayor here with our new Senator McSally over in Casa Grande. I was impressed. She seems to be interested in what's going on. She was quite surprised to hear about Pinal County. She knows about Pima County and Maricopa County, and we said we're in between, and here are the problems. I think all of the towns here in Pinal County shared the same concerns. One is highways and roads, and the other one was water. There's a lot of other discussions that we got into, but those were the primary concerns. I got contact information from Senator McSally. She seemed very genuine in asking us to contact her on any problems that we had at the federal level, wanting to support us. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you being able to attend today.
It was fun. It really was.
After 3 weeks break, the first day back, it was an inauguration and a ceremony. So thank you for that. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. I also want to say, in regards to earlier, we are business friendly. I hope that moving forward in the future, we have more communication and more opportunities for everybody to, communicate and participate. We are going to be going into an executive session. After the executive session, we will come out and adjourn from public. So at this time, I need a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, and we are going to go into executive session after a 3-minute break.